The Republicans who control this committee are not actually interested in solving fraud. What they're interested in is telling a story.
This fraud has happened underneath Democrat leader Tim Walz.
There has been Medicaid fraud across the country under Democrats and Republicans. There's fraud within the Trump administration.
Do you want to blame the Trump administration? We have Democrats blaming ICE. I'm tired. My people are suffering. I'm scared for my little brother. My people are suffering, and these people just walk off. We have a governor who fucking doesn't care.
Some fresh sound from you there. 42 minutes of this investigation. Independent journalist Nick Shirley racking up more than 125 million views. That's the number of Super Bowl numbers, by the way, on X, with a viral video exposing the staggering amount of fraud taking place in Minnesota. The 23-year-old, a frequent guest here on National Report, met with plenty of threats and resistance, as you see here, as he chronicled what is taking place on the watch of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
We're trying to figure out 102 children. Is that for this facility?
What is the name? Do I see the
It's from the state of Minnesota website. It says you have 102 children here in your child care.
Which child care name is a lot of
Minnesota Child Care right here. It's from the state of Minnesota's website. We're just wondering where the children are.
Where the children are?
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here. And you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley.
Nick Shirley.
And where are you? Which department?
Oh, we are from ourselves.
Yeah.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look, at this daycare center right here, no children inside of this daycare center. But between those buildings, over $2.6 million. We were just curious, where are the children at? Do you know where the children are at?
No.
Where are the children at in these daycare centers?
I don't care.
We don't want you to be videotaping anything.
Where is all the money going for if there's no children at these daycare centers?
Sir.
Yes.
I told you, please leave.
Wow. All right. We'll bring in our panel now. Florida Congressman Jimmy Patronis is a member of the House Small Business Committee. A lot to talk about there with him. And Congressman Peter Stauber also serves on the House Small Business Committee and represents the epicenter of this fraud investigation, the great state of Minnesota. Congressman Stauber, I'll get to you in just a moment. Congressman Patronis, what goes through your mind when you watch this just like we did? 23-year-old independent journalist do this type of investigative reporting the likes of a legacy media would have done 20 years ago. We don't see that now. What runs through your mind?
Well, the first thing I'm thinking about is how hard small businesses work to send their hard-earned tax dollars to the federal government that ultimately ends up just getting set on fire by these criminals up in Minnesota. You know, I ran a small business, family restaurant for 30 years, and I know how long those hours are to send tax dollars with the anticipation, expectation that they're being used in an honorable way. This is just it's gut-wrenching, and it should be an embarrassment for the mainstream media for not being a little bit more focused on what the importance is. And it takes a young man like this that's a street journalist in order to expose this embarrassment.
Yeah, that's the other element of the story, right? The misreporting, the underreporting of a story like this. In fact, earlier in this broadcast, I spoke with Minnesota GOP Chairman Alex Plekish. I asked him this, if it feels that embattled Minnesota Governor Tim Walz should step down or not. Here's what he said.
I think that would be right for him to do that. You see that in most any other organization, whether it's public or private. The person at the top, if fraud or something is uncovered, then the CEO or the top person should accept that responsibility and step down. Yeah, I would say so.
Congressman Stauber, do you agree with that?
Well, listen, first off, great to be with you. And Congressman Patronis is exactly right. Minnesotans are outraged at this fraud. I mean, we're looking at between $9 and $11 billion of hard-earned taxpayer money fraudulently used by members of the Somalian community in Minneapolis. And I can tell you that Tim Walz has not taken any accountability whatsoever. This has happened for the last 6, 7, 8 years under his watch. And GOP Representative Plekich, our GOP chair in Minnesota, is right to challenge Tim Walz on staying in office. The fact of the matter is, it was under his watch. He had DHS whistleblowers come forward, and Walz and his administration threatened them, monitored them, and simply unacceptable. You know, the Minneapolis media shielded Tim Walz until he became a national candidate. And we knew that when the national media would expose him, they would find out that he is a major, major disappointment for the state of Minnesota to allow this fraud to happen. We have people in greater Minnesota that we live in a child care desert in some areas of greater Minnesota, yet we look at Minneapolis and see the hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud at their daycare or healthcare centers, medical transport, autism centers. It's through the roof, and I am glad that the Trump administration and his administration are coming to Minnesota to save us from this fraud.
Yeah, we've seen that posted. You can watch it. They've posted the video of them going door to door. In fact, let's go back to that moment. Nick Shirley's video. We can witness the moment when Nick and his assistant were confronted by law enforcement in a largely abandoned building which housed alleged healthcare companies.
And finally, we were accepted into one of the daycare centers, and they actually took down our information to give us a rate. However, when we left, we were then met with the police.
We received a complaint that gentlemen matching your description were in this building harassing the individuals who stay here.
Oh, we're checking out the rates for healthcare. Because there's 14 healthcare companies inside this building, so.
Okay.
Well, that's not what he said. He said there's 14 companies here. And he's trying to assume because they're Somali providers that everyone here is fraudulent.
Okay.
So
he's here with some kind of like propaganda.
So
no, we're just checking.
This is a area that we're allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance. Is there any other reason that you guys are here?
Well, we were checking rates.
No, he's not.
We were checking rates. We asked for rates.
No, you're not.
Okay. I'm gonna have, if you guys are all good, we're gonna step outside and we can continue this conversation.
All right, let's leave.
We've been getting reports from multiple individuals that you guys were harassing individuals who work here. At the end of the day, this is private property, and it's one that people are allowed to ask you to leave, and it's also one the Minneapolis Police Department is allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance at this address.
So you watched it with me here. Nick Shirley basically says he went inside the private facility because there was health care that was offered, and he wanted to compare the rates, doing his research. He was escorted very quickly by police. It's not police's fault, right, that they got involved so quickly. They were called. They're just doing their job. However, it's not lost on us here that law enforcement were able to act so quickly on Nick Shirley, but not with the $9 billion of alleged fraud that went out the door, or any of the community members that were able to benefit from alleged fraud. Congressman Patronis, your thoughts there?
Well, look, Congressman Stauber is a beacon of integrity in a state that truly needs some right now. He's going to be a dog with a bone, as we all are, as we're going to get to the bottom of this. And look, I was the CFO for the state of Florida. The buck stopped with me on financial decisions that were being made. This is no different what's taking place in Minnesota. There's people that are going to need to be held to. There's going to need to be investigations. I'm assuming there's going to be indictments soon enough. But these are taxpayers' dollars. These are dollars that could go towards debt service, could go to truly genuine needs in our states, but we're allowing rampant theft to take place. I look forward to getting to the bottom of this and making sure that the honor that we've got in trustees over the taxpayers' dollar is taken a severe investigation into what's taking place and wrong in Minnesota.
Yeah. Congressman from Minnesota, Stauber, if you can, just round this one out for us.
Well, first off, I was a former police officer. I support the police. I was the biggest supporter of the police during the defund the police movement, which, by the way, is still happening. But the fact of the matter is, that's why the federal investigators, when they get involved, that's where subpoenas and search warrants are going to come into play. I have all the faith that the administration and the secretaries that are running the administration, the investigations rather, are going to come and find this fraud and hold these people accountable. They will be held accountable once these investigations are over, and I truly believe that Tim Walz will be at the center of this conversation.
All right, Congressman Peter Stauber of Minnesota. Thank you, Congressman Jimmy Patronis of Florida. We appreciate it, and Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
Happy New Year.